Welcome to the Unsidelined Life, the podcast that challenges and encourages women to stop denying themselves a full life and to step boldly into the opportunities God is preparing for you. Join me for raw insights and engaging conversations to guide your journey of self-discovery and pursue the life that God created for you. Welcome to the Unsidelined Life. This is Eileen Noyes, your host. We have a special guest here, Dequies Lanier. Did I say that right?
Yes.
Okay, good. Okay. So a lot of my guests, as you know, they are pro sports related. I'm trying to get at least two during the month who are not. And so just depends on who can show up and who can come on the show. It's all about timing. But we have just a wonderful guest here. I was on her podcast, and so now I have the privilege of having her on mine. And so before I introduce her, before I let her, get the stage, I just wanted to talk about how we got introduced. So I think it's through a Facebook podcasting group. And so, like I said, I was on her podcast, and I feel like I want to match people's vibe. You know me, I'm always in hoodies. I'm always in comfortable stuff. I'm like, she always looks decked out. She's always pretty. And I don't know if you just came from church when we did it, but I'm like, all right. So I have earrings, and I have it's still black and boring, but it's a little more elegant. So that's the vibe. And that's the classiness that exudes from this woman. And so having the podcast with her, just hearing her heart, her spirit, she is one who I call Lady Bellator. So if you guys have been with me long enough, you understand that God had given me the name Lady Bellator. Lady meaning royalty. We are daughters of God. We are part of the royalty. We're co-heirs with Christ. And then we're also Bellators, which is Latin for warrior. So God had given me that, and I was just like, whoa, this is so cool to see how that name, that logo, and then stepping into that and believing that was from God, and then for him to show me women of God who exemplify that has been an amazing thing for me to see. That's what I would love to be. That's what I believe I am. And just stepping into that woman who God sees me to be, but to be able to engage with women like Dequies is, it's always just a blessing, because it's those kind of dynamics where, that sisters in Christ, we just face to face one time, but it is a sincere woman of God who calls, who leaves prayers on audio. And so that kind of friend and that kind of sister is who this is. And so Dequies, again, thank you so much for being on here. Please introduce yourself, all that you're doing. And we should go from there. Kids, husband, I'm not sure, but I'll let you take the stage.
Yeah. Of course. Well, first of all, thank you so much. It was such a beautiful intro. And I honestly felt like I was a little overdressed today because I don't really wear blazers like that. But I said, let me put on something there. And then I don't know if people can see, but my top is just a bantu top. So I was like, I don't want to look naked. But no, that was so beautiful. But thank you so much, sis. And it's a pleasure to be here with you. The way that we connected was such a beautiful thing and such an organic conversation. And I can't wait to talk with you again today and just to spread the love to all of those out there. And in terms of just introducing myself, my name is Dequies, and I do quite a couple of different things, but my full-time career has been in higher education, academia, and I have sat on the administrative side of that, leading basically teams across a different region. And then on the other side of that, I have been a faculty member. So the bulk of what I do is enrollment management, and then the other side of it is teaching students and helping them progress in their careers and just follow their dreams. So that's what I do by day. And then by evening and weekend or what have you, I have my small business, which is to empower women. In a nutshell, it's called We Sweet. And so I do that, and yourself, sis. I host a podcast over there, but it's really just healing work. And I think that was one of the most beautiful ways that we connected was through this very shared love and passion to do this kind of healing work and just speak to the lives of those who are on a different area of their journey, but where we share just certain similar or shared experiences. So can't wait to talk to you today about those things. As far as home life, it's just little old me. I come from a very large family, and so I one day will, venture into that path. But right now, it's just me. And so I live in Atlanta, Georgia. So we're doing this bi-coastal today. But that's in a nutshell it. And anything else, I just let you ask me whatever you want to ask.
Okay. So, one, how old are you?
Yes. So actually, Sunday, I will be 35.
Okay. Oh my gosh, you're so young. You will be. So next Monday.
Yes.
Okay.
Next Monday.
Happy early birthday.
I keep forgetting about it. Yeah.
Do you have
Yeah.
plans? Do you have anything?
So just a little low key. So I'm going to have brunch with a small knit of some of my girlfriends and my cousin. But that's really it. This month has just really been crazy for me. So I didn't plan too much, and I'm really trying to, and we'll probably get into this, but I'm trying to release control. So I'm right now in heavy prayer about that. That has been a life lesson for me. So I've really just said I don't want to create a lot of plans right now. So
That's right.
I just want to free flow it. So I said I'll do lunch. So I'll do something for myself, but I'm just gonna see, what happens. I'm just gonna follow the weekend. But yeah, so nothing major, just brunch.
Awesome. Okay. So you had mentioned a couple things which I forgot we talked about. So you talked about just personally, like you like to control things, and so you're relinquishing and control. And it's interesting because I never thought of myself as a controlling person. Like I feel like I'm pretty laid back, things like that. I don't want to say totally free spirit, but I feel like in some sense as a mom of like a lot of kids, there has to be like anything goes. Okay. And anything goes at any time of the day. And if I had everything all regimented all the time, and if I had to stick to that, then I'd stress myself out. I mean, that's just me. So to be able to not have control for sure, for me, I just feel like overall I'm like that kind of person. But, which I'd love to talk about is the one area which I realized I was starting to try to take control is in my marriage. And so as I went through, so you didn't know this, but one of the last episodes I did, which is airing today, so today's Wednesday, it is it's on healing and freedom. So I talked about my journey. I talked about like layers that here at one time 7+ years ago, I'm like, I've gone through so much healing, like I'm good. And then I went to this retreat, and oh my gosh, it was just all these layers of releasing of emotion that I didn't realize I was stuffing for so long. And so just going through that process and through that retreat, it was like, the whole thing of control, it just dawned on me like, gosh, why am I trying to control the marriage so much? And it was because that's where the trauma was. That was where the most hurt was. And so when you're hurt, that's where the fear comes in. And so wherever there's a spirit of fear, there's a desire to control. So to be able to see that and go, and here's the thing, audience, I need to just record right off the bat, because as soon as, we're just talking, kind of just catching up a little bit before I pressed record, she just gave me such an encouraging word of understanding the healing that needs to take place still, and how I am not my past, how just the different triggers. It's like, I talked about this, like the subconscious mind, it just is trying to look for a connection. It's like, oh, I've been here before. That's warning, all those things. So anyways, yeah. So this whole thing of just, you talked about control. I'd love for you to get more into that piece, if you're okay with that. It's like, what was your experience, like with that? And tell me why you're doing this. Like what draws you to the healing aspect of your podcast. I know that's a big part of what you're doing.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Okay. Let's
Sorry,
see.
it's a lot in one question.
Yeah, I need to figure out how to maybe shorten it. So that's really two layers. So let's start with my season of control now, and then I can get into like what led me here. And I think that because I know that latter half will be a minute. So right now, the even when we got ready to get started and the things that we shared right before, you hit record, I'm able to speak from that space because I share that, I share that moment of being triggered, and the go-to default setting is to protect myself. And to protect myself, that means I have to latch on to control, because then the rug won't be pulled from under me. I won't be surprised. And even if I've got to go through this thing called pain, I'm almost bearing down and bracing myself for it. And
Wow.
that mentality comes from the perspective that I am destined to kind of feel this. Like, this is my journey for whatever reason. I've always got to battle this thing. And
Wow. Okay.
so if I have in my head, in terms of, let's just use relationships and love, and, even any type of relationship, but for sure, like romantic relationship, but then your sisterhood or whatever, if that's where the significant pain of my life comes from, and that's what I'm used to, that is what I know, and the trajectory of my life and my deepest pain has been from that experience, then when I interface anything in similar relationships that reflect that, so let's say I've moved on or whatever, the moment something is uncomfortable, the moment that something feels like a battle, instead of just trusting that in this life, spiritually speaking, we will face various trials and tribulations of every kind, and the word tells us that.
Sure.
Instead of us trusting that that is our spiritual development and that's how Christ grows us up as his children, instead of resting on that, we go directly to, okay, something's wrong. I got to bear down. I got to get away from this. I got to get out. So I can't put myself through this. How do I protect myself in this? And instead of understanding that just because something's wrong doesn't mean you go to worst case scenario. Sometimes we go to worst
So
case scenario. Sometimes it's like, hey, you may face an argument. Hey, you may face a day that feels disappointing or hurtful, but that doesn't mean it's time to, pack my bags and take flight because, okay, no, I didn't see another sign. I didn't recognize this red flag, and I know better. Instead of that hypervigilancy, we have to trust that this is normal and everything doesn't end in disaster. Yes, maybe the past ended in disaster, so it feels, but that's not the culmination of your life. When God does bring you out of something, he doesn't intend for you to constantly go through something that's going to strip you all the way down to make you feel like nothing. That's Satan's
sure.
voice telling you you're not worthy. That's Satan's voice reminding you that, see, look, love is painful. You're not worthy. You're always going to have to battle this thing. You're destined to always have to fight with relationships, to feel like you're not enough. That's your destiny. That's Satan's voice. That's not God's voice. God's voice
Yes.
is like, hey, yes, you may go through some things, but I'm here with you. And this is your opportunity to rely on me, not rely on man, because man will disappoint. Man, and even the love of your life, may react in certain ways or say certain hurtful things. But if you put your full value and your full trust in that, then you're not putting your full value and your trust in me as God. So sometimes we have to exercise those qualities and those skills to remember that, yes, in love, I may experience a difficult day. Yes, it may be hurtful. Yes, the love of my life may say something painful. They may even lash out in a fight and do something that feels inherently really wrong, wrong enough for me to say, oh, no, I'm not going to be disrespected that way. But that's a reminder that I have to face various trials and tribulations of every kind, to exercise unconditional love, to exercise the fruits of the Spirit, and to remember that my full faith and my full trust cannot be in man. Even if it's the love of my life, it has to be in Christ. So
Yeah.
with that very long example, getting back to the control piece, it's hard not to default to control when you feel deep in your spirit that I've experienced this very deep pain. And the only way that I know how to protect myself from it is to plan, is to prepare, is to remind myself logically of, okay, you didn't catch this before. Don't be stupid again. Okay, you
Yeah.
didn't stayed in something too long before that you should not have stayed in that long. So don't do that again. And so control kicks in, and we think that we can kind of steer the ship on destiny at that point. But the reality is, regardless of what situation feels like, okay, this one was painful, this was a disaster, this was my new beginning, this is great, this feels good, whatever, regardless of how we weigh in our head those things, what we really have to understand is that in neither one of those experiences, even if we go back to the past, even if we're looking at the present to weigh those things, neither one of those we have full control. Neither we can go back and say, I should have caught this, I should have paid attention to that, I should have whatever. But the reality is, in both situations, the lesson is trust God, not what
Yeah.
you could have done. Trust God, you know?
Yeah.
And I think for me, I have experienced that level of pain, especially relationally. And that gets into the second half of what you asked me about this healing work. And I'll be honest, I didn't even God revealed it to me. I didn't even realize I was doing the healing work in the beginning for that purpose.
Yeah.
God revealed that to me later, and actually most recently. And there was a series of things that happened in my life where God had to almost unveil it to me. So I think that at this point, I just want to, elaborate on where I am now in the second half of this, of talking about healing and just kind of finding my purpose in doing We Sweet and all the work that I do now. So shifting gears a little bit from the hurt that we've experienced and being triggered from past experiences and believing that we're inherently supposed to experience this war zone and pain and love and relationships and that sort of thing. And understanding that we really have to just trust God and put our faith in Him and not man. I have had so many experiences within the last year that have really brought to the surface what I'm meant to be doing. And I started We Sweet in 2022, and I was just doing podcasts with friends, close women that I was, part of my sisterhood tribe. And even family members, I like wrote them into it, like my cousin and some things like that. And it went from just these, how a lot of podcasts start, with people, where you want to have these great conversations you feel like the world should hear. It went from that to me really embracing talking to other women that I didn't even know. And it just expanded because, as you put yourself out there in the world, which by the way, I did not want to do. I didn't really want to put myself on video. I didn't want to hear my voice. I am not the person that necessarily wants that type of attention. So I was audio only for a long time. And I'm going through the details of this because I really feel like it highlights just the aspect of my journey. And I think it may be helpful for other people to hear these little things I'm saying that's not.
For sure. I agree. Yes.
Yeah, not so pertinent to the healing part, but a part of it, right? So
Yeah.
I didn't really want to do that. I wasn't this person that was so bold. I wanted to be on camera and be seen, but I was bold enough that I wanted to create change, though. I knew that I felt that in my spirit. I was bold in creating change. I was not bold in, hey, here I am, see me on camera. So when this was happening, I started to be challenged, and I consider myself spiritually challenged because the more my voice was out there, and people were hearing that, I started to get emails from people that wanted to connect and wanted to be on the show. Much to my surprise, because I'm just doing this like I just want to, help others. I want to pour into others. And next thing I know, this is moving beyond just my inner network to talking to other people. So as I'm talking to other people, my mind is expanding. And I'm talking to people in different cities at first that aren't in Atlanta, Georgia, talking to people throughout the world. And then I go from that experience to talking to I don't know, gosh, people internationally. And at that point, I'm just like, okay, Lord, I see what you're doing here. You're like taking me out of my comfort zone. And see, that's why I talked about the not want to be
As
on.
always.
That's why I talked about not want to be on camera, because I think that's kind of an integral piece to the story here. I didn't want to be on camera. And now it's like God is telling me, okay, well, now I'm going to make you talk to people across the world, and some that follow me on my pages to this day that, they're part of my little network today, Australia, London, people just reaching out from different places. And at that point, I said, okay, you have purpose. You're going to empower women. That's what you built this on. That was the foundation. My even catchphrase, vision, motto, whatever you want to call it, empower women everywhere. And God really took me to the everywhere part of that. And at that
Wow.
point, I'm solid in my foundation of understanding that I'm meant to continue this healing work to empower women everywhere, right? But God had more to show me that I was not ready for. And it started with my own healing journey. And so I talked to you about starting in 2022. Well, as the devil would have it, the February, I think, of 2023, I went through deep emotional anxiety and just I was struggling severely. And we talked about control on the first half of this, right? And now we're talking about the healing journey aspect of it. Well, I was diagnosed with OCD. I talk about that on the podcast. I talk about that on the show. And during that season, I didn't want to record. I was ready to just take a step back from all of it. But my sisterhood told me no. My sisterhood was like, hey, you can't give up on this. You can't quit this. This is what God has for you to do. We believe in you and we will carry you, even though you're hurting right now, even though you're, almost depressed right now. Like, what do you need from us to pour into you to do this? Because you can't stop. And
Wow.
their strength and their belief got me to the point where I cried one minute and hit record the next. So I was like pushing through what I didn't really feel confident to be doing at that time. And the OCD, I have a version of contamination and just like the mental fears, thoughts version. And so I didn't even feel safe in my own home because I couldn't clean enough. I couldn't organize enough. I just, and so I was just feeling stuck and trapped. And the trapped piece is important because it deals with the control. My life had changed. I had recently moved, and I think the move triggered me because I was used to where I was for a couple of years. And so all of that, it was just surfacing something in me. And at that time, I relegated it to the move. I relegated it to a new environment, just some changes going on in my work life. And I kept it so linear, but God was trying to expand my thinking. So as I'm going through this change and my sisterhood is pushing me throughout all of that, I end up doing a season called The Healing Journey. And it was probably right around then that reality started to kick in on what God was doing. And as I went through that season, I'm
And
realizing
when,
that,
when you say season, sorry, when you say season, are you talking about the actual your podcast season?
yeah,
Correct?
yeah, when I was working through that season on the healing journey, I think it was like season 4, that was me actively healing while talking about healing, you know.
Wow.
So that's another story. So
How how
as I get
how
past that and
how
I'm doing
how
that,
many seasons
right
do you
around
have?
that
How long have
time
you been
is
doing this?
when God sent the people that I would be talking to in the everywhere context, like all over the states, all over the world. And so when that happened, I get to a point of having gone through being diagnosed with fibroids, and I had to have surgery. And that came the next year in 2024. I'm going to try to expedite some of this. And so, literally, from like the top of 2023 to 2024, a huge, massive transition for me physically, emotionally, and mentally. And 2024, I have fibroid surgery. They found a lot of stuff going on down there. I had to have endometriosis cleared out, all that's going on. And so now
Oh,
I'm going through not just the emotional heal, but now I'm going through the physical heal. And I'm like, okay, Lord, like, what's going on? What am I missing? What am I missing? And as I'm transitioning through all those things, I kind of took a break from the podcast at that point, obviously the surgery and things like that. I took on a lot of more other projects work wise and just my academic world. And as I'm rounding out that year and I'm going through other just personal changes and just new things entering my life at that point, I feel like the veil started to lift where God was about to show me, okay, I expanded your reach. I expanded your understanding of your healing journey. And now I'm about to unveil it even more. And this is where a pivotal point happened for me where I looked back, going back to the first half of this question about control. I looked back at my inability to release that control. And sitting down for 6 weeks from that surgery showed me you have to sit here. You have to sit with how you feel. You have to sit with the fact that you can't work on the podcast. You have to sit with you're not in control. You can't do anything for yourself. Literally, you have to be helped by your mother right now. You can't clean your house. You can't, you know. And I was still trying to get up and do things like most very, power through women would do after having
yes.
children or surgeries. Like you just want to do it yourself. And God was humbling my spirit. So as I'm sitting through all of that, I'm going through all of these emotions of just realizing where I am on my healing journey. So that took me back to the control, the OCD, the physical healing. And I started to sit with that first half of what we talked about on emotional pain from previous relationships. And that is the moment that it shifted. And I realized that I had attached a lot of my need for control and to protect myself from previous very significant hurts romantically. And those hurts caused me to isolate myself for years at a time. So, I went a good 10 years not like dating any of that because I was just in this space of I thought healing at that point, but that wasn't healing. That's what I thought it was. That was barriers around myself so that I could not be hurt. But healing, as I know it today, actually happens when you're put in a position where you have to work through that pain. When you isolate, you're not working through that pain. You're putting protection around yourself so you don't have to feel that pain.
So good.
So I want to say that because that 10-year gap, I fooled myself into thinking from previous hurts that like, oh, I'm healing. Oh, I'm working on my education. Oh, I'm working on my job. Oh, I launched this podcast. Oh, I did this. I did that. And I got engrossed with the work. I got engrossed with ambition and success and doing all the things and building out what I thought my life was supposed to look like. And in all of that, I was exercising control and security. I wasn't exercising faith in Christ. And it wasn't until all this other stuff happened that I just told you about that I was starting to realize I'm losing control, hence the height of that OCD. Like that's like a light, switch flipped or something. And so as I'm realizing the truth of what I buried the pain. When I realized that that's what I had done and it's starting to unfold and just pour out of me, I was so hyper vigilant. I was so emotional. Any little thing done, any little thing said, even by friends, even by family members or anything like that. Not that they did anything wrong, but I was just easily triggered by it. Easily emotionally triggered by any little insignificant thing. And so it was really, to me, that trigger of any little emotional thing was like what was underneath the surface, like trying to come up, just trying to come up. And it finally did. When it did, I started to reflect on my life from the moment I entered this world to present day. And I don't have a whole lot of time to give context to that other than to say I come from a blended family. And I've had 4 parents pretty much since birth. And I have my own experiences, of what that was like. But at this present day, I've been able to not just recall what it was like for me, I've been able to see it from what it was like for my four parents involved in this situation. And I'm
Which is totally
reflecting.
different for everybody,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know?
And I'm reflecting on my own kind of emotional pains from previous relationships. And I'm trying to figure out, you know, like, again, the control, like, why do I feel like this? Where is this coming from? So I'm going back in time, understanding from the beginning what got me here. I isolated for 10 years. Why did I do that? Like, I'm just trying to rationalize and understand these things. So as I'm filtering through my brain on all of this stuff, and I'm starting to look at it from a very different lens, what it was like for, my parents, not just what I experienced as a child. And then as I progress beyond that, and I'm going into, okay, what were the relationships that I've had in life? What was that like for me? Why, did I experience what I felt to be these deep, deep, deep emotional hurts? Everybody goes through breakups, right? Everybody goes through tough relationships. You're not the only one. People go through marriages and divorce. You're not the only one. But for me, it was like this deeper cut that I couldn't understand, so much so that I was willing to isolate and never for a while, engage in anything romantic again. And so I filtered through all these things, and it boils down to, again, the first half of what I was telling you about, putting that much faith in man, putting that much faith in person, not to hurt you, not to disappoint you, relying on them for your emotional security instead of Christ. And when I
Yeah.
realized that, and I realized that my emotional security wasn't with resting with God, it was resting with people. And that's why I would shut down to a point of withdrawal and isolation and focus on my goals and just go to the area of life I felt like I could control, which that's another story because you can't control that either. But that was the perception. And so I got really good at work because that's what I felt like was solid. That's what I felt like was grounded. That's what I felt like was stable. And, while I was getting the job done and things were going slightly well over there, still things happened in that area of life that brought my OCD and anxiety back up. And I was just still at tug of war. And I'm like, okay, even after isolation, I'm still feeling like I have a loss of control over life in a sense. So at that point, it's like, okay, God, what are you really showing me here? So I've opened up, the door to where it wasn't just about empowering women. It wasn't just about healing mentally and emotionally anymore. Now we're talking about healing family and healing love and healing that and healing deep internal relationships. And I'll say this too. I feel called to say this. I was talking to my therapist one day, and we did like a little, project where I had to kind of outline my security basically. And she asked me in that outlining of that, there was something she wanted me to refer to as what I keep hidden. And immediately I told her anything that deals with intimacy and love. That's a no-go zone. I don't want to talk about it. That's not. But any other supports, work, even girlfriends, my religion, talk about that to you all day. You want to get down to intimacy and love, I'm not talking to you about that. And we started to talk about that more. We started to, really deeply dive into why are you so fearful of that? And for me, it was the deepest pain. It was the hardest pain for me to deal with. And again, not that other people didn't have these very same experiences, but for me, it was just the hardest thing for me to deal with, to talk about. And so, as God would have it, so I believe, I would not get that vulnerable in the several seasons that I had done on the podcast. At that point, I was rolling into like maybe the 7th season. And this is the
Wow.
point where after the surgery and I had to sit with it, and I'm like, okay, I've been talking to all these people about careers and coaching and consulting, but I started this on a healing journey. And that's where I want to get back to. So God helped me realize, yes, I called you to this work. Yes, I called you to empower women, but you're not really doing it as I've called you to do it. So now you gotta dig deep and you gotta figure out where this is headed. And that's when I said, okay, I'm going to continue to talk to people and promote their brands and give them the ability to voice, who they are and all that stuff. But I started this with the intent to help from a spiritual place heal others. But that means I got to deal with my own healing first. How do you do that if you're not willing to be vulnerable? If you're not willing to talk about the deepest pains of your life, how are you going to do that, Dequies? And so now we've gotten to the point where God has revealed to me through things that have happened in my personal life, even present day, where I am now addressing, not just with We Sweet, but just in general, I am addressing the healing of the deepest wounds of ourselves. And so here lately, I've been doing a lot of work around just emotional wounds. And I think that I've been called to that space because the deepest pain usually is where you're called to heal. And so the deepest pain has been my heart, has been my love. And so now I'm having to speak to women and women everywhere about the hardest part of what I never wanted to discuss. And God actively healing me while I'm doing it, So
Yeah, wow.
This started with a need to control and protect myself, which was really about a need to control and protect my heart, embedding myself in work, and then avoiding my own traumas and triggers and trying to kind of fool myself into believing that the platform and the nature of the work will be about empowering women, only to be brought back to you have a control issue of your life and you're avoiding a deeper pain. And now for that pain to be presented on a stage, even though when you started this, you didn't even want people to see you on camera. It has been a very raw healing out in the open situation where I have to be okay with being vulnerable.
Do you feel like you're living on the sidelines of your own life, cheering others on while your dreams gather dust? If you're nodding along, you're not alone. I'm Eileen Noyes, and I've been there too. As a former NFL wife, I felt like I was in the shadows as someone else pursued their dreams. But here's the truth. God didn't create you to be a spectator in your own story. That's why I wrote Sideline No More. This book is your playbook for reclaiming your purpose and living the life God intended for you. Whether you're an athlete's wife or simply feel stuck on the bench, it's time to get in the game. Sideline No More will help you discover your unique talents and passions, overcome the fear holding you back, and build a life of purpose and fulfillment. Don't let another day pass feeling unfulfilled. Get your copy of Sideline No More today at ladybellator.com/books. That's LADYBELLATOR.com/books. It's time to step off the sidelines and into your God-given purpose. Your adventure awaits.
So good. Okay, I want to interject a little bit. All that you're talking about, I love God's timing because, we had set this date, I think it was maybe a month. And I didn't know that the last, I don't know. I think it'll be the next. So Healing and Freedom, yours is next. Oh, there's one in between. Sorry.
Mm-hmm.
There's one episode in between. But anyways, it's going from healing and freedom to you talking about all that you're talking about, which totally ties in. Yeah. And it's continue because I'm like, I literally said, I need to expand on this. And so you are totally following through with what I had started, because there's so many things that I just think about when I'm hearing you. And I think, gosh, how many of us do that? We, in sincerity and our heart for others, we want to help other people. We want to, we want so badly to comfort others and to heal others or help others heal. But really there is something there that it's like, if I do that, then I don't have to focus on myself. I don't have to think about these wounds that sometimes it's not intentional. I'm sure that you probably didn't realize that there was things. It's not like you're going, okay, I'm gonna avoid my stuff and focus on other people and caring for other people. You just didn't even know that it was there, probably. Just like, that was the episode that I talked about. Yeah. Another thing that I think about is, so I do Marco Polo with my friends, right? So Marco Polo is that app where, this is why it's helped with podcasts, right? So it's like, me just being able to talk on screen to someone, knowing that my friends are listening at their, own convenience. And so I'm, it's a polo with 4 other girls.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm literally talking through a situation I told you about it earlier, where I was like processing through with them, processing through and going, okay, this is going on. I'm so mad right now, but okay. And it's like they're seeing me go through what is God telling me? How do I look at it? That whole thing. I would literally say, all right, I got to count it all joy falling into this trial. As much as I think this and I want to say this, I'm going to say this because God says to do these things. And so as I'm going through this process, they see me going through it. And then they see also the healing part. They see, oh my gosh, this happened. This came through this struggle. And so one girl, she had pulled it back. She's like, Eileen, she goes, thank you so much. You have no idea how much you're impacting us women. And she goes, you're not just talking about your healing after the fact, you're going through it with us so that we can see it. And so that helps because a lot of times, that vulnerability, that is the part. No one wants to go to someone where they, if I think that everybody's got their stuff all together, then I'm going to think they can't relate. Like they don't know how I feel in that life. But for you to be able to be vulnerable, to say, okay, now I got to deal with my own stuff and I'm going to talk about it. That's where you're really impacting people because you're in the thick of it and you're talking about it in real time. And you also have to do it alongside of God. Because I know that, when you talk about hard things, sometimes if we're in the thick of it, it could be that we're, bashing on someone or not healed or not, forgiving. And so that can be detrimental. But, someone like you, someone like me, I think, God, I want to obey you. I want to obey you in this process. I want to obey you, even though my feelings are, anger or frustration. It's like, okay, this is how I feel, God. Just like Psalms and David. This is how I feel. But Lord, this is what you want, or this is, I go back to you. I go back to my eyes on you. And so I just, I'm just encouraged by, you talking about that you're going through. And so it's just very encouraging. I just really appreciate that.
No, of course. And I mean, it's easy to want others to help you through your stuff without necessarily telling them what your stuff is and listen to them be open. So I could sit here and be open all day and you could be, okay, I need this is great, this is helping me, but then it not be something you're yet ready to do, right? And I feel like that's where I was. I was okay listening to these ladies and their stories. And I was willing to connect with them so long as we weren't highlighting the stuff I was, dealing with. And it got to a point where I had to ask myself, am I really doing what God truly called me to do? Like, yes, I have the space to do this. Yes, I've created this platform to do this, right? Yes, I am going out there and reaching community and bringing in people and trying to touch people. Yes, I'm trying to share, the word of God with people, but that's like surface level. Beyond that, are you really doing what God would have you to do? And to do that, you've got to evaluate where you are personally with God. And where I was personally was revealed to me that I had so much emotional instability because I had not yet dealt with the true healing. I had isolated, I had not healed. And I think, and let me not say healed, started my healing journey, because healing can be a journey, not necessarily an end destination. But I was at a place where I had put up this fence around myself and considered that to be my utopia of, okay, now I'm fine. But it wasn't going to be until I came back out of that utopia and really had to engage in relationships with others to really test whether or not healing has taken place. And you see that in the way that you emotionally react and respond. You see that in how you communicate. You see that in how something happens and triggers your emotional state of being, and whether or not that causes you to stop doing everything you're called to do. So taking that from theory to practice, if I am, let's just say, in a relationship right now, something bad happens, bad day, bad fight, whatever, as an example, and I allow that to shut me down. I don't want to record my session today. I don't want to, you know what I mean? So at that point, it's like, and I'm not saying we're human. We're of the flesh. We're going to have a natural human response. We're going to need a minute to step away, process, and calm down, right? That's normal. But what I'm saying is, if I get to a place where what I'm going through over here has stopped me from the call over my life, then the anchor isn't Christ. I've let this person become my anchor. And I can't do that. Yep. I have to have Christ as my anchor. So no matter how much this thing here shifts, no matter how bad it hurts, I don't care if I cry before I hit record. I've still got to hit record because I got work to do. I got things God asked me to do. And it's through me serving and being obedient to his call that God works on my heart. And if this person loves me, God works on their heart in the same time.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. So good.
You know, like I can give up and hit the floor and cry and say, here I am again. Oh, so hurt. Like, I don't want to work today. I don't want to talk to people today. I don't want to do anything today. I'm just hurting right now. I can put myself in that. But by me locking away and doing that, I'm not trusting God. I'm not putting my faith in God for what he has joined together, right? Because if God truly joined this thing together, and I believe that from my heart, then I have to know that I can't control this working out. God controls that working out. I got to just continue to walk in my faith and be obedient. So I have to continue to serve. I have to continue to do my work. I have to continue to touch souls. I have to continue to empower women. Even if I feel like I'm shattering right now, I know that if God joined this together in terms of this relationship, I don't have to shut down and get so invested in what's going to happen. What do I need to do? Do I need to walk away? I don't have to do that. I can truly trust that God, if this is what you said is for me, you've got it. I give it to you. This hurts. I'm upset, but I know you've got it.
Yeah.
And then I have to walk in the boldness of my faith and trust that. And that's not easy because the enemy, and this is important, because the enemy will take that vulnerable wound that you have and twist it, you know? It's like, okay, she was thriving. She was recording all these shows. She was working. She was serving in her community. Life was going good. And now she's gotten vulnerable. Now she's hurting. Let me go over here and prowl around her like the lion and let me attack her while she's weak. And so, of course, the enemy attacks at that point. And it is going to happen where that voice gets in your head and it feeds doubt and it feeds fear and it feeds pain, previous painful moments to be specific. And if you don't know how to say, wait, that's not God's voice. If you don't know how to do that, because it's going to happen. It's not like it's not going to happen. It's going to happen. If you don't know how to say, wait, that's not God's voice, then it will bring you to depression and it will bring you to focusing on the person and the hurt that they did or what you think they, might be thinking or what they might be doing. Like you get wrapped up into this vicious cycle of ruminating on all those thoughts and the painful thoughts. And you start to create a narrative in your head based on the past and bringing that into the present. And somehow you're down a rabbit hole and it might not even be that, but it's blown up and magnified to that because the wrong voice was advising you. And you
oh my gosh,
that down. And I'll give an example. I was in that space and I was watching, and I don't watch a whole lot of TV because I honestly don't just have time, but I was watching TV one day and it was playing, what was playing was like one of those reality shows, love shows, whatever. And it was playing on a sensitive point for me. And as I was watching it, because I had gotten a little bit better. And I said, oh no, I got to cut this off. It's touching a spot that I can't handle. And it was a behavior of an individual in the show that was heightening a memory for me. And I said, okay, nope, this is reminding me way too much of like some narcissistic stuff. I got to get off. I can't watch that. So I cut it off. And then, because I want to give women some practical things, or men too, but whomever, I want to give practical things here. It wasn't just cutting it off, because now the seed is planted from the enemy, right? I've heard it now. I can't unhear it. I've already heard it. So what do I do when the seed is now planted? I got to pull up the weeds and I got to go plant something fresh.
That's
so
good.
I had to go listen to a sermon. I had to go read some scripture. I had to make sure that day that any conversations that I had with any friends or anything like that was safe conversations for me, nothing negative, nothing, that was going to go downhill or anything. And sometimes things that even your friend groups may be talking about can be perceived as something light and airy. Ha, did you see this meme? Nope, not today. This is not the day for that. So I had to pour in goodness, and I had to rip out rotten, ugly roots. So those are the practical things. Like if I get to a point now where I can say, God, you promised me a hope and a future. You said I was chosen. You said that you love me unconditionally. You called me, an inheritor. I'm fearfully and wonderfully made. That's the truth. But I'm hearing I'm not enough. I'm hearing, you're destined for pain. I'm hearing you're going to keep going through this. You haven't learned a lesson yet. See, look, you haven't learned a lesson yet. You still got, you don't even know how to recognize red flags. I'm hearing these things. And God is saying, but I gave you a spirit, of hope. You don't have this, you don't have to have the spirit of fear. But this over here is fear. So when I'm able to say, okay, like, let me steady my emotion. Let me come down off of being here. And let me look at this thing a little bit more practically. This is this voice. This is this voice. Which one do you want to believe? Once I've been able to do that, my next step is, okay, I'm feeling a little weak. My spirit is weak. So now I need to go pour into that spirit with truth. I need to go pour into that spirit with knowledge. I need to pour into it with, my word, and knowing that God and the Holy Spirit can speak to me when I'm weak. So I got to a point where if I was going through a rough patch or a rough season, I wouldn't go to bed without listening to a sermon. I wouldn't get up in the morning without listening to a sermon. I didn't care if I had to put my phone in the shower with me and put a sermon on loud and listen to it while I took a shower. It was like you have to put in place certain practices, certain routines. And some people say, I don't want to be routine about my faith and things like that. And I've had, an understanding about that. But sometimes when you're weak, you have to do things until the practice is in your spirit organically. So you can say, I know that's the wrong voice. I know that's not the right voice. But when there's not a practice of doing that, it's very easy, to follow into that.
It reminds me of when it says, don't let the sun go down on your anger. You typically think of that when it comes to like a relationship with someone, but even though it may not necessarily be anger, you're talking about something that is not right in your mind that you're being consumed with. And you're saying, no, I'm going to take these lies and I'm going to renew my mind with truth. That's what you're talking about. I mean, I think about, Isaiah 26:3, you'll keep him in perfect peace whose mind is stayed on you because he trusts you. So it's like, my thing is I can either look at all, or I can hear all the noise and look at all the circumstances, or I can quiet myself and say, Lord, just like you said, what do you say? You say this. That's why it's so important. And this is even, people think it's legalistic. Read the word of God, because it says like the Holy Spirit will bring into your remembrance the things that you've learned. Well, if you've not learned from like the Bible, if you don't know the Bible, you don't have the ammunition, that the Holy Spirit can bring to your remembrance. So I love that you're talking about this. Oh my gosh. Okay. Such good stuff. We are already down to like the hour. What where are you now with everything? Like, because you're talking about this process of, now that you're, or you could be in the middle, and we're all, it's never, just like you said, there's constantly just different layers of healing. So where are you now? Where have you seen like progress? Where are you with your podcast? I have so many questions. Like, I do want to say that it is so encouraging to hear about you. One, you're 35, you started this thing, you're only audio, and then to see how people are, they're just kind of, like wanting to talk to you in this podcast space. Like, that's super encouraging for me, starting because it can get like, we're like, okay, am I doing what you're calling me to do, God? So many things I'd love to talk about. We may have to continue on another podcast. But yeah, like I'd love to have your closing, thoughts as we end this podcast today.
Sure. So in terms of just where I am on this healing journey today, number one, I think it is a journey. I don't really think you just hit an end destination. And I say that because not that you'll keep, and I want to slow it down and be very intentional with my words here, not that you'll necessarily keep reliving the painful moment. There'll be triggers, of it, even little glimmers of it, but you may get to a point where you're not completely paralyzed by it and continue to relive it. But it's still a journey, and it's not complete, because as you go through different seasons of your life, it will unlock certain aspects that you haven't yet dealt with. So now the journey continues. So in terms of what I'm talking about here, from like family and love and things like that, and those love relationships, like I can, and I'll give this example because I haven't done this yet. I'm not a mother. So I can think that I've gotten to this certain point on my healing journey and think, oh, things are great. But then I can become a mother. And now the healing journey is continued, because now I'm going to be experiencing and going through some things that heighten some things that I wasn't really aware of would be still a part of the journey. So I don't want everybody to think that healing journey means that you're going to be paralyzed to go back to that same pain. That pain may be there, but you may not continue to relive it like you did. It may just present to you in a new season of life that, hey, there's still some things I'm exercising. There's still some things God is teaching me. There's still some developments happening in my spirit. And that's a safe and okay place to be. That's not bad to be on a healing journey extensively.
It's really good.
Because some people think that a continuous healing journey is a bad thing. It's not. It's growth. It's development. It's God exercising our character.
And it's readiness too. I mean, it could be that you're just think, Lord, you know where they need healing. You know where they need your guidance. In your perfect timing, you're going to, I don't have to force it. And I think, because some, they don't think, they're like, yeah, I'm good. And I'm like, you know what? I hope that God heals before this, but there's definitely going to be things that when you become a father, you're going to be hit with different things. And like you said, it's not like you're bad or you should be ashamed about it. It's literally just part of the journey of healing. Yeah. And like you said, it's just continuous. Yeah. So what were you were going to say something?
Yeah. So I wanted to start with that statement. And then in terms of me in particular, where I am on my journey, I'm right now continuing to learn that I have to release control. And that's going to be a life lesson for me. Some things come to us naturally on the healing journey where, okay, maybe if I used to withdraw when I'm hurt, I don't do that anymore. All right, cool. Box checked, if you will. But then there are those things that are innate to maybe our personality and who we are as an individual. And those same things can be our gifts in life. Like, I'm a planner. I like to see it and know where I'm going. But that same strength is my Achilles heel. And I have to know how to balance the need for planning and organization and detail. I have to learn to balance that with releasing my life to God's hands and really practicing that daily and being able to be aware when maybe I'm reverting back to control out of fear and out of security, that I don't feel safe. I don't know what's going to happen. So now I'm reverting back to what I know feels safe for me, which is control. When I do that, I'm not allowing God's will to truly manifest as he wishes it for my life. So that to me is where I am on the journey, and probably where I'll always be, to continuously learn that. Releasing control. Now, that's what I'm continuing to learn. In aspects of where I feel like I have grown significantly is my emotional equilibrium. I am much more emotionally stable, because I've truly gotten to a place where I don't rely on anyone else in my life to disrupt the connection that I have with God. Even though I still struggle a little bit with control, somebody can do something, and in the past that would really throw me off. I wouldn't really be able to focus, like I'm obsessing over it. I'm rereading a message, or, whatever it is. And now it's like, well, Lord, you got that, So it's this balance. So although I do still have to exercise releasing control, emotionally, there is an aspect where I've grown, where I don't let something throw me so far off my game that I go into this major protective space of withdrawal.
Yeah, so
I don't go to this huge space of withdrawal. I've learned how to remain a little bit more present, a little bit more engaged, a little bit more able to clearly articulate my needs and my feelings. I'm able to express myself a little bit better, instead of getting frustrated with my feelings and stuffing them away and then lashing out later, which was highly unproductive and slightly immature. But it's a part of it. It's who you are, and you have to kind of work on those aspects of who you are. So I've learned to tell myself that your needs are okay. You're not wrong for feeling like this. Being emotional is okay, but what you do next with that emotion counts. So you can be upset, you can be crying, you can whatever, take a step back, take your moment, but don't become the moment. Count the moment for what it is, let it pass, and then move forward with intentionality with your words. Move forward with an intentionality with how you respond and how you react. Be accountable for that. Be rational with that. Because whatever you execute with those emotions, you're setting the tone for your environment of what you flow back to you. What I put out there, what energy am I giving out? What energy am I bringing in? What I put out there is probably what I'm bringing back in. So if I can't effectively communicate through my emotions, then I'm inviting in that same environment where I'm not going to be received well. I'm not going to be understood well. My emotions will fall wherever they fall. And then whoever I'm engaging with might not handle that the way I perceive they should. But the thing is, how did I put it out there? How did I react? How did I respond?
I'm giggling a little bit because I think about how I went through that healing process, just this other level of healing. And I'm showing up differently. My husband hasn't gone through his thing yet, but because I'm showing that I'm not so uptight about things, or I'm not looking at everything and being paranoid about, oh, well, he needs to work on this and he needs to work on that. I'm seeing how I'm changing my environment. And it's just, it's like, here I've been waiting on him when it was just me. And so it just falls in line with like what you were saying. I think about my other guest, Julie Anderson. She has Married to Addiction. That's her, that's her platform and her podcast. And I just think, gosh, how much can we impact our environment when we just focus on our own healing? And so it just, I'm just encouraged by you. So can you please talk about, just closing, what's your podcast? When is it? I'll have all your information on here. But yes, I would love for you to just how can people get connected with you?
Sure, absolutely. So the podcast is We Sweet. It is We Sweet Podcast. It is We stands for Women's Empowerment Sweet. I wanted something intimate. So the sweet kind of.
A suite, SUI, so like a suite, like a room, a suite type
Yes,
thing.
like
Okay.
a room, SUITE. Yeah, so I wanted something that was intimate where women gather, and the essence of it is community. And so my entire brand just hinges on healing and creating a women's empowerment community. So I don't have necessarily this one particular group per se that benefits from that conversation. It really is any woman anywhere on her journey, although I would say it's probably anyone from their 20s on up to, like, I don't know, 60s, 70s. I've had all kinds of people tell me they've listened, so I'm just going to put the age brackets of that. But it's people that are trying to find their purpose in life or be empowered in their careers or in their leadership. And then it's women who are stay-at-home moms and trying to understand how they want to exercise motherhood better or wifehood better. Sisterhood has been a big one, that people who want that community but don't know how to develop it because they've experienced not the best community, family stuff. So it's all things women. And so people can listen on Spotify, Apple, I think it's on Amazon too, We Sweet Podcast. And then if that doesn't work for you, you can just go to my website, and that is at Dr. Dequies. Well, let's do it like this, because I think I've changed some things around. So my email is drdequies@wesweetco.com. Yes.
Awesome.
So
Yeah, we'll have that all there.
Yeah, let's just do it that way. But they can find me on the website too. But either way, it's out there. That's the work that I do, and I consult for women as well, like women that have businesses and just kind of some life coaching stuff too. But in a nutshell, that's me.
Awesome. So encouraged by you. I love how God is. I mean, like I said, I'm a whole lot older than you. And I just think, gosh, Lord, thank you for bringing people into my life, but putting people out there to be vulnerable, to point to Christ, to encourage women, to encourage people to cling to God and his word. I mean, we so need that. And so just thank you for your vulnerability. Thank you for your transparency. Thank you for your encouragement. I so appreciate you being on this podcast, and we'll continue to talk. So this is the thing that sticks out to me is, especially with women, there's such a thing of us being insecure, and we envy or we criticize each other, but to continue to set this tone, your podcast, my podcast, different guests that I've had on the show, where we're not putting each other down or trying to one up each other. We all are given this space by God to do his work, to encourage each other and to lift each other up. And so just thank you so much for being a part of that. And I love you, sister. Oh, yes. Looking forward to hear more about your book when it comes out. So I'll keep my audience in tune with that too.
Yes, thank you so much, Eileen. I just want to tell you that I love you dearly. I feel truly humbled and blessed to be here with you, and to always, always collaborate and just have fruitful conversations, healing conversations. So excited for the work that you're doing, and I'm so grateful for you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Dequies. All right. Love you, girl.
Okay. Love you too. Bye.
Bye. Until next time, love well, celebrate your strength, and discover the new things you are capable of. You are a light in the lives of those around you, and no night is too dark for you to find your way.